All right, everyone. Thank you for your patience. All right, let's let the notifications go out. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Chris. All right, everybody. Yes, let's let those notifications go out. And yeah, we made it. I had some errands to run. God he said, I need you to be prepared. I'm telling y'all, God gives us the heads up, all right, when He's about to do something. So whenever we're embarking on something like this journey of detoxing and things like that, and so God, He told me, He was like, I need you to go to that store. He said, I got some stuff picked out for you that you're going to need when the next, it's going to be here real quick. So, yeah, Isaiah 60:22, y'all, in action every single day. How the Lord will hasten it on His time. Hidden about that. So there you go. All right, there's no room for fear. And that is just one reason why. And I have a few verses that I've got picked out to share with you all where God tells us, it's like we don't need to be fearing nothing. You can't live and walk by faith and be living in fear at the same time. It doesn't work that way. It just won't. So there we go. Sound check complete. Yeah, that's the thing. All right, but let's get these formalities out of the way, shall we? I am Michelle Dickey, your host for CHA's Let's Just Chat show, streaming on the YouTube channel Narcissism and Cognitive Dissonance, where trauma healing and spiritual growth are front and center while combating radio frequency poisoning for healthier living. Trauma healing and spiritual growth occur with God's wisdom, basic scientific facts, tried and true technique, and more here and at CHAAcademyBTBW.com. The link to the Academy is listed below. Some of you may have to copy and paste the link to view what CHAAcademyBTBW.com offers to help you level up your trauma healing and spiritual growth. So we've got some things that we have to discuss. And this is the thing, chosen ones, we learned that we got to stop living in fear. There's no reason to. And not only that, we never did. That's the reality of it. All right, this is why the narcissists were always baffled by us, because of the simple fact that they could tell when we were fearing, right, and when we weren't. We didn't know yet, but if they're demon spirits that could tell whether or not we were living in fear or experiencing fear. Remember that spiritual energy transfer? Okay, so to help y'all put that in perspective, on my walk this morning, there was a person riding a bike, went by really quick, and I sensed their fear. And of course, rebuke in the name of Jesus and return to sender, and it shall flee. So we got to remember that, yeah, it doesn't belong to us, chosen one. It does not belong to us. And there is no room for fear in the kingdom of God. You're not going to be able to focus to co-create with our Creator if you're living in fear. Think about it, right? So, yeah, all of that. I have a wife who did say, and it's in my book, Real Events of Narcissistic Abuse, someone's survival guide, and where she said that, said most people worry about things that will never happen. Exactly. Because we live in a worry-warped world. Yeah, where the matrix is all about preparing for things that may never happen. Because I'm here to tell y'all that, well, once we realize and understand that they manipulate the weather, and I'm going to share with you all real quick, do not fear that. They can only do it to an extent. Because on my walk this morning, oh yeah, it was nice and warm and sunshiny. Oh, but no, enemy couldn't have none of that. So as the day went on, it cooled down and it's the rain. So, but it's only temporary. God's still in full control. The enemy knows that. So, anyhow, we learned that it doesn't belong to us because we do that daily self-check-in, right? We're going to do that daily self-check-in because that's how we assess where we're at. Because chosen ones have nothing to fear. We now know this in God's reality. So, our faith is far more important than you can ever imagine. And walking and living by faith, I did a video all about that. I'm going to bring it back. It really is truly trusting God 100%. It's not checking on things over and over again to watch water boil. It's learning how to develop the godlike patience and just take a moment and go, take a look around. Thank God for what you have. And we don't focus on what we don't have. You see? That's part of the faith factor. Whereas the narcissists, they always focus on what they don't have. You see? So they're living in fear. And they focus on what they don't have. And of course, we know that they can't stand it when other people have things that they don't have. So they envy and they're jealous. I want y'all to think about this. Living in fear. Remember, fear is the foundation for abuse. If a person is living in fear, they're easier to manipulate and control, abuse, right? It starts with that demon of fear. And then comes with it at least 2 or more. That's not going to be enough to suffice by itself to do much of anything. So instill that fear, right? And for chosen one, we now know it was just lingering. And I'm going to explain this to you in detail because it pertains to our autonomic nervous system. Oh, God is revealing a lot about that. How the enemy got to condition it first to live in fear. How does he do that? Anybody? How does he do that? What are we in? A spiritual battle for the mind. And so we've since learned that our thoughts control our ANS. So what does that tell you? Exactly. It tells us what we need to purge from that subconscious. So, for example, because of its anticipatory nature, the autonomic nervous system, right, operating in the background through the subconscious. So it was anticipating a certain threat based on a body movement. Well, now, why would it do that? If our thoughts control that sucker. Because subconsciously we thought something to the likes. Let me share with you all. In that previous environment, at some point, I had to have subconsciously acknowledged the radio frequency being a little out of range, knowing that that is a threat to our nervous system. And the ANS knows that. So while I got here, right, it associated me not wearing these as I was moving around in the kitchen doing similar movement, same movement, because we are creatures of habit, preparing food, getting my tea. And so it kept trying to tense up back there. That's how I got on this. I'm like, hold up a second, because I'm not in that environment. And God said, I need you to put your ears in. Said that your nervous system needs to hear what you're doing in the new environment to dissociate from the perception of a threat. Because I did. subconsciously. So that's for you all, your food for thought. So while you're asking God, what else do we need to purge from the subconscious? Listen to your autonomic nervous system. It will tell you. And so that right there is one. How are we doing that? Well, we're wearing them more often, and we are little by little reintroducing that nervous system to sounds that are in the normal frequency range or considered to be thereof. Okay? Because there are certain sounds, okay, there are certain sounds that are in the generally, in the normal range. So what did he have me do today? Because I was like, okay, I know this is on the spirit, but he told me while I was in the shower, he said, I want you to turn your radio on. Because I have not played music in my car. I have Bluetooth capability. Yeah. I had to get a new radio when I moved to North Carolina from the Ex-Echo because he tampered with the oscillator in there. So anyhow, I had to get a new radio. And so why not get one that's Bluetooth ready, right? Of course I did. And so I was like, all right. And so God said, I need you to turn some music on. I'm like, well, what music? He said, well, what is your autonomic nervous system familiar with? That's it. Wage war. Yes. All right. And so he had me, start with the song Who I Am. And then just kind of go down the list on their album titled Pressure. Because those were the songs that are so relatable to narcissism and the narcissists, the evildoers out here. Right? Yes. And so he told me, he said, put those on. Now, I remember when I was delivering pizzas, man, I would blast that music. Oh, yeah, I had it all the way up to 15, anywhere between 15 and probably 15 and 20, depending on the song. That's pretty daggone loud inside that little Honda Civic. That is pretty loud. That's moving. And, yeah, it didn't affect me negatively because I was on the blood type diet. I was exercising. So God said, and not only that, I enjoy singing along. Okay? So God said, I need you, that ANS needs you to get back to doing things that you enjoy, and it needs some familiarity. A positive thing. Because that's some pretty upbeat music. Okay? It is. It is definitely. It is clean metal, y'all. There's such a thing. There are different genres of heavy metal music, and Wage War, in my opinion, they are clean metal. Okay? But their lyrics are so relatable to the spiritual battle for the mind and how the narcissists treat people and things like that. So extremely relatable. Including the song Fury. Alright, so that was an introduction today. He needed me to get back to that. But the volume was only on 5 to start with. Well, it was at 9, but I turned it back down to 5. And I get on the highway to get to the store, and I'm listening to the music. And I'm like remembering, yeah, man, that's a jam right there. I was like, oh, man, so I got to turn it up. I couldn't get past 9. I was like, woo, blow me away. And so God said, that's what I wanted to show you. By not having these in, it did not make my hearing worse. That's right, it did the opposite. Wehowever, I do have a tolerance for louder sounds. It doesn't affect me negatively. So God says, we're going to get you back. We're going to get you back the way you can handle that. Not saying we couldn't handle it now, but because we are still detoxing, we don't, right, we don't want to, okay? So there you go. I had to share that a little bit with y'all because we're on this journey together. That's right. We got to purge learned fears and phobias. That's it right there. Is that a lot of the fear that we went through, chosen one, they're learned, right? Because we were told what? Exactly. I mean, think about it. And then I'm gonna get the Bible here in just a second, right? Because we got to know that there's no room in God's kingdom for fear. Because you can't focus and it's not gonna work. The enemy knows that. So purging learned fears. Absolutely. You gotta know what they are. And so that example I shared with you all was as I was moving, preparing food or whatever, and I did not have these in my ANS, just, what you doing? It was still thinking that I was in the other environment that I subconsciously perceived as the threat because of the RF. And so it naturally responded. Our thoughts control our autonomic nervous system. So yes, you will feel it now. You become aware of when it is responding to certain things based on movements that you're making. Pay attention. And what's the association? Okay, what is associated with it? Because at some point, if it is, as I was walking towards there, right, a while back to start pulling my face out of the jar, okay, as I'm going to the bathroom area in the sink, it's already trying to, right? And I was like, why is that trying to tense up? I'm just going in there to. So a lot of that stuff. So I said, I had to have at some point anticipated in the subconscious at some point. And God revealed to me that it's a combination of things. Here's your tip on how to assess this and to analyze and listen to what the ANS is telling you. That's what you need to purge. And so in my circumstances, it had more to do with the auditory factors. Okay, remember, our ANS is dependent on our five senses for association. So I learned this movement right here, not necessarily because of the grooming tool. Okay, we're past that stage now. It's losing that association every single day because we ice packing it. Aha! There's your tip also, because it's hot with those metal molecules and salt and stuff. So God revealed to me what that was as I'm getting out of the shower. If I want the one side wanting to get up, and God said, what was the last thing that you did closing that Jezebel case study in that environment that you knew was a threat? Exactly. One of the last things I did was I had to take a shower and get cleaned up. I had to chop off my hair. No biggie. Hey, God said it. He's working on it. Listen. Them little stubbies are just they do what they want back there. Anyhow, got out of the shower. What do you do? What's that movement? I'm moving the shower curtain. But because I don't wear these taking a shower though, it knows that. It just has to remember that. And then I walked over to, right? Because just bear with me for a second. The bathroom that I took the shower in, okay, is the location very similar to where the shower is on this side. Then I walk over here a little bit, except now we got a doorway. But in that bathroom, there wasn't a doorway, but you have the toilet. And then over to the sink where I would put my makeup on. So Exactly. And not wearing these in that Jezebel case study environment. Getting cleaned up, load up my car, and not give her a second chance. Oh, no. All right. So that is what my ANS is associating all of that with. As to why every time I walk over to the, exactly, because it had to break the connection. See, it didn't behave that way when I was bouncing back and forth between hotels because the shower was on the other side. It was on the opposite. So it didn't behave that way. Because I asked, I was like, why is, I was like, why is it behaving that way here, but it didn't there? And he said, well, what side? Right. The shower and the tub and stuff was on the other side. And the vanity and mirror, it was switched. It just so happens that this apartment had that layout of what it's familiar with. The last thing I did in the previous and last environment that was a threat. So there you go. It has that memory. So now to break those associations with wearing these, here's what God told me to do. Y'all can fine tune and tweak this for whatever your circumstances are. Okay? Because mine largely happened to be auditory. Right? So what I do, he told me turn the shower on and let it run. That's very soothing, right? It is very relaxing. It's very soothing. And so your autonomic nervous system needs to hear that, oh, okay, that's the shower. It knows this movement, but it needs. So when I got out of the shower that day, I got out, I got dressed, and I was like, hold on. Yeah, I got out of the shower that day, got dressed, and I said, what does it need for me to break that association? He said, it needs to hear that you're getting out of your shower. So what I did is I didn't turn the water back on, but I stepped in on the inside and I moved the shower back, waited a second, and I let the ANF hear the metal being dragged across the shower rod. Oh, break that association. Because now I can hear that's what I'm doing. And that we're not in an environment that is a threat anymore. So, yes. Oh, we talk about my black team. Oh, yeah, they could. They could hear that pizza lady coming a mile away. Yep. But usually, y'all, when I got to a customer's location or close enough to it, I would turn it down. I did. All right. Professional courtesy. But that's a good one. But, oh, yeah. The toxic workplace, boy, they knew when I was back from a delivery, though. Did they? And yet, that's a good point. Fear absolutely can paralyze. Yep. You know, that fight or flight response, right? Well, you also have the fight or flight or freeze. There's 3 responses connected to the amygdala, which is the control center for fight or flight. As your autonomic nervous system is your threat assessor and detector. So y'all are going to learn a lot more about the ANS here coming soon. Seriously, because there's a lot of connections to how we contribute to its functioning and its responses by what we think in our subconscious. So I did at some point. And so we have to own up to it as part of this spiritual awakening and in God's reality to unlearn and purge that subconscious of any kind of learned fear. Because we did. And so I now know, I was like, oh, so at some point I must have subconsciously, I had to acknowledge that the frequency in that environment was a threat. And it is, when frequency is out of the normal range, it is a threat to the autonomic nervous system. So we got to keep that in mind. But there are also normal ranges. But here's the other thing. Once the autonomic nervous system can make an association to a sound and realize it's not a threat. Oh, for example, the notifications on my business phone. Okay, so the ringtone earlier today, before I took off, it was ringing. Spam, of course. But my ringtone, that was a new sound. But it didn't have, because I knew it was coming from the phone, it did not have a major negative impact. It just kind of briefly paralyzed for just a second until I said, hold up a second, walk on over there, take a look at what that was. Oh, okay, that's my ringtone. Somebody was attempting to call. And so now the AI then could make that association to that sound. And it's not a threat. See, that's how that works. And so, yeah, as long as we stay aware of these things, absolutely, we'll be able to purge that subconscious, stop living in fear of anything. Because we don't need to be feared. Remember, the enemy knows that what we fear is what we're going to attract. That reminds me of something funny I came across on Facebook, and it really is pretty funny. It was a meme. It had a picture of a cartoon character. And the person wrote it with clenched up eyes, as if they're in fear of something. Okay. The caption said, well, they say that you attract what you are afraid of or what you fear the most. So inside the meme, it's like something to the effect of I am afraid of $1 million. That's funny. Okay. Let me go ahead and check in with y'all in the chat. Listen, the chat for y'all too, okay? Yep. Been through some traumatic events. Don't want to dwell on it. Exactly. Not surprising, picking up on the autonomic nervous system connections and issues and things. Yeah. Because heightened awareness. It's like I'm not dwelling on it. I'm going, why is that doing that? I'm asking God. I'm like, why is that responding that way? Because this is how we are going to purge the subconscious. Because what the ANS got conditioned to respond to, based on what it perceived as a threat, we have to undo that. That's how God restores. But let's see where he tells us. I mean, it's throughout, 365 times in the Bible, God tells us not to fear in many different ways. Be not afraid. Do not fear. Fear not. Okay? And so here we have, it says in Deuteronomy. Oh, I like this one too. In Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 6. Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid of them. For the Lord thy God, he it is that doth go with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. Glory be to God. Fear not them. In other words, don't fear these narcissists and the devil. Remember, we're not wrestling against flesh and blood. So again, that's Deuteronomy 31, verse 6. All right, and so now that takes us to, Isaiah 41, verse 10. Isaiah 41, verse 10. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Remember, chosen one, this is why our right side is often targeted first when we go and do what? If we have blood drawn, that's right. The right side of our body gets targeted first because God said, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. I know, it's like, okay, wow, makes sense. And not only that, because Jesus sits on the right hand of God. And it's the Jesus spirit that the enemy is trying to see if he can kill again or crucify again. You can't do that to a spirit. The enemy is stupid. All right, so now I have in Joel. Okay, that's Joel. Chapter 2, verse 21. Fear not, O land. Be glad and rejoice, for the Lord will do great things. That right there seals the deal to overcome that fear of the unknown. Bingo. For the Lord will do great things. So, got no reason to fear. No reason to fear the unknown because we're told right here what the unknown is. The Lord will do great things. We may not know what they are yet, but we know that whatever it is, it's going to be righteous. It's going to be positive. It's going to benefit us. Whatever it is. That's right. And I know all three of those are from the Old Testament, but that's because the Old Testament, it does have a lot of good lessons right there about not fearing. We're told not to fear also in the New Testament, but those are the three that I was led to. I thought, you know what? Yeah, those are excellent examples to share where God tells us that we don't need to be in fear. There's no room for that in God's kingdom. He told me that a long time ago. So, yes, they are very comforting Bible verses. That's right. Very comforting. Because we got to be reminded that, listen, whatever it is that God has for us, it is great. That right there helps to overcome that fear of the unknown. And get excited about it. Because walking and living by faith, that God is going to make sure. He's going to provide for our every need. He knows what we need before we do. That's why he tells us. He told me, he said, honey child, he said, because that loosed. He said, I need you to be ready. And so I thought about going yesterday, but he said, no. He said, wait till Friday. And go and get a few things to be ready. And then he also, listen, y'all, God will allow us a little splurge. And so we have a goal, right? See, this is the thing. You have a goal. You got to set that goal. God says, set that goal. And because I have some numbers up there, and God says, it's going to come quick. In other words, we're going to reach our goal a lot faster than, okay, so he wants me to, we're going to reach our goal a lot quicker. Isaiah 60:22 again. So this when God does, then okay. So, because when that loosed for me, and he said, okay, so things are going to, real quick. Okay. So I'm going to get to the goal. But we got to keep going. See, that's the other thing. You cannot live in fear and expect to reach a goal. You see? Yeah, it's not going to work that way. Because you're going to go through some additional trials and tribulation to reach that goal. a good example on this detox journey from radio frequency poisoning, our body's going to fluctuate because of the inner body heat and then trying to get rid of the excess salt. Got to circulate through to get it out. Okay? And so we have to be patient with that. Right? See, the enemy wants us to focus on the external. God says focus on the internal. Y'all, this is our motto for this movement. So when I came out with the Motivational Monday message, focus on the internal and the external will follow, it's true. Because what I shared yesterday, okay, what I shared yesterday about God revealing my walking to me, right? And he had, right, because there was some tension still back there that was, exactly. So when he revealed that, he's like, okay, now, things are going to move along. So if I was living in fear, then that wouldn't have done that. That's the other point. Cannot be living and expect God to reveal, hey, I need you to see this. Yeah, but. You won't be able to hear God in all that fear either. Think about it. You got fear, confusion. Oh, remember God said, where envy and strife is, there will be confusion and every other evil works. What do you see on that world stage out there? Yeah. And so God is not the opposition either. In fact, he awakens his chosen one to get us unconfused. I've said this before. I was like, here, let me help unconfuse you by simplifying the complex. All right? That's how we got to do it here. God is a simple God. That's right. God is a simple God. He's not going to complicate things that aren't complicated. So I just wanted to share with you all some of those examples, because as we go through the detoxing process and beyond, God is going to do what God does. And so the other thing about living in fear is that when you go through that and you might feel a minor ache or a pain here or there, well, yeah, a narcissist with a low tolerance for pain, that would scare them. Whereas us, we're not living in fear. Of course, the ANS know that. So we're basically embarking on this journey to where we are introducing our biological body to our spiritual body, not for a merging of sorts. We still be able to discern. That's part of that discernment, is being aware of what it's responding to, so that we can help retrain it, basically recondition it to stop doing that. There's no more threats. And it's all part of our thoughts. Our thoughts control that sucker. Boy, I tell you, the more that sinks in, the more it makes sense as to why the enemy really, truly wants to get that control over our thoughts, because he knows that if he can get in there and control and instill fearful thoughts, those hallucinatory moments during the detoxing, those are meant to instill fear, because that stuff don't work on chosen ones, or it shouldn't. So when those things, if they are making you a little jumpy, okay, that just means your body needs to rid of a little bit more salt. There's your clue right there. If any of the hallucinatory moments that you're detoxing from metal toxins, salt, other things, right? Okay. So the enemy will try to make you think that you heard or you saw something that you didn't. Just let God guide you. But if it's still making you a little bit jumpy, that just means a little more salt got to come out. So don't dwell on that. Just take note of it. Oh, that means I just need to get rid of more salt. And maybe reduce a little bit more of an intake for a day or so. Because I will share with you all where we're at, where Michelle Dickey is at in this process, is those hallucinatory things have zero effect on me. Zero. Okay? And we got to be able to discern. Okay? That's all part of it. That heightened awareness. Yay! And it is an intriguing part of the process. I will not deny that, because it's really fascinating to learn these things about ourselves that I don't know. I'm sure there's some research or what have you. And yes, Chris, I have not forgotten about some academic articles in CHA Academy. That's the best place to put them. And so we're working something out. I want to go ahead and I'm going to put the two that have been shared during these live in the community forum as well for others as they come on in. All right, and then I'm gonna look for some more that kind of correlates. What that means is relates, okay, to the things that we are working on. That trauma healing, spiritual growth, combating radio frequency poisoning for healthier living. That's movement, baby. That's it. So, like I said, it is now more than just a mission. It's a movement. Because this is my third go round. And I said, you know what? And knowing what I know now with what happened and what the enemy needs us to do and how it's supposed to trick us into thinking that we have things that don't exist. So we run to a matrix that's just going to give us something, a Band-Aid. What? No. Those are things that we can do in our lifestyle to mitigate, meaning alleviate, reduce, right? And never forget that as we continue to get the heightened awareness that God needs us to have for this stuff, the less a negative impact it's going to have on us, because we're aware and we can do what? We can detox. We can make better choices. We can do something about it as part of our battle. Because that is part of the battle, right? The spiritual battle for the mind. Absolutely. Because RF is used for what? Mind control. It all fits. Yes, you're welcome. Okay, so a comment on the internet that says fear equals false. Yes. Fear is, and I put this out on Quora too, that fear does. It is false evidence appearing real. Remember how the devil is all about appearances? Okay, well, there you go. But yes, exactly right. Fear is false evidence appearing real. So we learned that, there's no reason to fear. Because false evidence appearing real, hallucination, right? All right, that's the best example I got right there. Right, but false evidence appearing real is exactly what fear is. And it tricks a lot of people. It tricked us for a time. Don't forget that, y'all. It tricked us as well for certain things. One example would be, let's just say, inclement weather preparation. Of course, I'm not saying, depending on your area, to not be prepared, but don't dwell on it. You see, that's the thing. There's the difference. Because dwelling on it leads to living in fear. They say, oh, they're telling us that a storm is coming. Okay, so just make sure we have this, and this on hand. Okay, we're good. And then we go about our business. All right? Yeah, we don't dwell on it. If we have a car kit in the trunk, okay, cool bean, but we don't dwell on it. There's a difference between being cautious, okay, and dwelling on it. Whereas those who are living in fear won't even realize that they're dwelling on it, especially in the subconscious. And so as the enemy knows that you're going to attract what you fear. Yes, we do. We attract what we focus the most on. Yep, phobia. An extreme, there you go, thank you. An extreme or irrational fear of or aversion to something. That's right. That's the definition right there for a phobia. So put that on the screen. Absolutely. Because that's what we learned that these narcissists, they have. Now, phobia is about a lot of stuff. Because of that fear. Claustrophobia, right? Fear of small spaces. And a lot of that stems from early childhood traumatization of some kind. Maybe they got locked in a closet. I mean, you just don't know. But they continue to live in fear of that. And I understand that the trauma is real. The trauma is real. But the fear, not. But it just had them thinking, because that fear of small spaces just continues to help them relive their trauma. We're not to be doing that. We're not reliving our trauma. We're overcoming them. That's the difference between chosen one and narcissist. Right there. Big one. I mean, there's a lot of differences between narcissists and chosen ones. We know this. But one of the biggest ones right there is that chosen one overcome their trauma. We learn to overcome them and then let them go. Narcissists never do. In fact, it doesn't surprise us, now does it, fellow spiritual warriors for Christ? It doesn't surprise us that even Jezebel actually like their trauma. Think about it. They feed on pain and suffering. And so what they tried to do to us in the physical is what happened to them. No, don't feel sorry for them. 1 Thessalonians 4:13. Okay? Don't feel sorry for them. It just lets us know that what they tried to do to us, for example, being dragged down those stairs, that happened to her. I don't feel sorry for her whatsoever, because everybody has that chance in life as to whether or not they want to heal and grow. But if they make that choice to hang on to their trauma and they never overcome them and they end up liking them, you don't feel sorry for them. But remember something, the devil is not as strong as he wants you to think he is. He's very weak. God is all powerful. Yeah, the enemy can only give off the appearance of being powerful. He's not. All he has is head games. So God is the one who is all powerful. This is why these narcissists out here continue to underestimate the power of God. So chosen ones don't do that, because we understand that ultimate power is in the hands of God. And we let him have it. Yes, please. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want that kind of responsibility. I'm just keeping it real. That's a lot of power. And we could never take it from God anyway. God gives it to us, that power and authority to trample on scorpion and serpent. Why do you think we have that power and authority? Because of the Godhead on the inside of us. Christ who walks through us. So it's like God is sharing that power with us. But we still leave it in his hand. You see, that's very spiritual. He shares that power with us. And the enemy's always lurking nearby to see if we're going to use it. In other words, if we're going to set boundaries, learn to say no, right? Walk away from the evildoers, adhere to Matthew 10:37 and 8:22. Right? Yeah, the enemy's always waiting to see if we're going to use our God-given power and authority. Will you share it with us? Something to think about. Yep. Yeah, our mind, remember, right? The carnal mind is death. A spiritual mind is peace and life. Yeah, our carnal mind cannot even know, we can't comprehend the power of God. We just know we have power and authority on the inside of us from Him to do His perfect will, to heal, to uplift and help others, right? Yeah, because that's Christ who walks through us. So it's like, okay. So, but true. I mean, as far as the overall, like how much, how strong, we cannot even fathom. And that's cool. Because we just know that no matter what, God is going to always work things out in our favor. He has, He always will. That's why, chosen one, that's why we're able to get through the storms that we get through. Glory be to God. Because I know I'm not alone. Many of us have asked that question in certain circumstances where, wow, how in the world did we make it out of that? How in the world did we get through that? Well, now we know His name is Jesus. And it's the power of God. Because for those of you who may not have heard this before, but yeah, right out of the hospital bed, back in the house, got cleaned up. I was just focused on getting out of there. Because, exactly, okay, we knew. We saw the snake pupils. That's one thing God needed me to see. And then we also got to observe in their natural environment, close the case. Because all of the signs were there. The flamboyancy, the trying to bump elbows with managers at the store, all kinds of things, special that Jezebel do, causing chaos and drama because they didn't really want to help you do something. All classic behaviors of a narcissist. And so we were able to see them in real time. All right, so I could get, okay. And so God said, because He already had my escape plan ready, because it was just, He revealed it to me through my phone. I was able to book the hotel room and figure out where we're going and all that. Right there in that hospital bed. As I finished somewhat of a forensic analysis to know exactly what happened, because the story had a lot of holes in it. So, people would be like, how in the world did you do that? Well, I'm like, if I would ask God that if I were you, because that's how. Because I knew. Yep, I knew better. I knew that there was no way I was going to stay there. I knew I wasn't going to be there long. I just didn't know it was going to be that quick of a turnaround, but that's okay. That's okay because we have the lesson now. And we got to see in the spiritual what God needed me to see, and in the physical with her all those narcissistic behaviors on display that we often expose, and many have shared in their story. That's right. And then at first, I thought she was unaware that she's a Jezebel. Well, some Hoovers have now proven otherwise. She knows exactly what she is. And she likes it. See, that's the thing. That's what I was getting at. It's that they're living in fear, And they actually like it because what is fear associated with? Adrenaline. So their fear gives them an adrenaline rush. See, chosen ones, as we grow and mature, right, as we're supposed to, we outgrow that because we're like, ew. We no longer have an interest for those sitting on the edge of your seat. Oh, I know, I did it one time in my life, sure. Oh gosh, I've seen every episode or every movie in the Resident Evil series. Oh yeah, there was that time. And then also a movie called Wrong Turn. Oh man, I love that. Not anymore. We don't want that. It's like, that's why chosen ones don't get addicted to their adrenaline. Because we grow and outgrow those things. Whereas when we were younger, like, yeah, man, that's cool. But now we're maturing and growing and evolving, striving to become more Christ-like every day. So I put away those childish things. Yep. Narc sent to our doorstep. Yeah, exactly. The narcissist gets sent to our doorstep to try and get internet on our phone. You know what? That's the thing, is that I look at it this way. You have, just like in everything in life, you have your pros and your cons, right? You have your good and your bad, right? You have the chosen ones who are good. You have your narcissists who are bad. Right? You have God who is good, God who is great, God who is awesome. And then you have devil who is bad. Right? So just like everything with the internet, you have the good and you have the bad. Just like in all battles. We've got good and evil. There's the better term right there, because that's what we're up against. And so the narcissists have an unrighteous heart. They're unthankful because they complain about everything. So they don't even, and they gossip and they just keep continuing to engage in everything that God tells us not to. And so, chosen ones, we learn. Got to knock it off. And you know something? The beauty behind it is that when we learn that, hey, we don't need to be engaging in that. We need to be figuring out what we're here for, right? Unpack that bag, get into our purpose, figure out what it is God called us to do. Absolutely. So, how are you going to do that and live in fear? You won't. And the enemy knows that. That's right. The enemy knows that God has inheritances for his chosen one. And the enemy don't like it. The enemy wants to try to interfere. The enemy wants to try to steal it. This is why God does not release some blessing while we're still in certain environments. Because he knows that the narcissists, the evildoers around us, would try to steal, kill, and destroy. Try to interfere. So there are some blessings that God will hold back until he replants us. So just know that, chosen one, is true. Okay? It is very true. Many of us can attest to that. Because while I was in that last environment, it was the devil who was doing the blessing. In some way. Well, many ways. All right? God was doing a little bit of blessing here and there. All right? But it's only after I got in here, my own space. Well, started when I was bouncing between hotels. God knew I was going to end up here. That's when stuff started getting released a little bit more. Okay? So I need y'all to understand that. It takes time. This is why we got to have that patience. So when God starts to release. And no, I ain't going to tell y'all what it is. I'm not going to tell you when, and I'm not going to tell you with what. Unless God needs me to share it with you. And the one he lets me share with you all as a brief example, because it is not a secret, is that we got to make sure that if we're getting likes on our content, those are small blessings. And so we're thankful. Thank you all for giving our content a thumbs up. And thank you for subscribing as well. So I got to throw that in there every once in a while, because those are blessings. Now, we're not talking about the narcissists who play games, okay, with the, right, they'll never mind, all right? They play those head games on social media all the time. So we don't even, it gets to that point where we don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to them. So yes, I would have to say that the internet on our devices, and it really is, because it allows for us, like-minded spiritual warriors for Christ, to connect. I mean, I don't know that we would have been able to any other way. So when you think about, I know that the intent of the enemy with the internet and social media, okay, is for more mind control and things like that. Whereas God takes it, flips it for his glory, and says, guess what? Here's the other side of the coin. That my chosen one can start coming together. That's right. And so we do. So I wanted to go ahead and make sure that I have everything caught up on the comment side. There you go. But we have to remember that there is no reason to fear, because it's just not going to work. It's not going to work in God's reality. In the kingdom of God, fear does not belong. Because God is always working out things in our favor. We have to be reminded of this. So while we live, while we live on a planet that has a narcissistic matrix, a world stage, we have to be mindful of what we consume information-wise too. If you sense anyone or anything trying to instill fear, you sense it, okay? Then you know not to let it get in that subconscious, okay? Because that is what the enemy wants. And your spiritual ears will perk up when somebody is using a subliminal message to try and instill fear, because that's how it happens, right? And we know that a lot of fear is instilled in people surrounding health, because they don't know what else to do, because they don't know that they are being narcissistically abused and mind controlled with radio frequency. They don't know that they're being poisoned with radio frequency. A lot of people don't know that. So we're just, okay. That's why it's our movement now, part of the trauma healing and spiritual growth. Because that radio frequency is used to manipulate the autonomic nervous system. So we want to be mindful of that. So we learn more about that together. And it's just really an amazing thing, because all that fear mongering out there, right? Yep. About this or that. We learned that a lot of it made up. It's a make-believe world out there. A lot of it made up just to keep the triangle going. Triangulation. Not a coincidence. So keep that in mind. All right, everybody? Very, very, very true. The people needing help finding the people or person that can help them on the internet, right? It may not have been, it wouldn't have been possible without this kind of connection, would it? You have to take the good with the bad, right? That's what they say. But now we learn, chosen one, we ain't got to take the bad. That don't belong to us. We no longer tolerate it because we don't internalize their negative garbage. We learn to cut ties, and we learn how to deal with letting go of what God removes and learning to embrace what God brings. Letting go of fear, because the enemy knows that people living in fear are not walking and living by faith. See, fear steals the peace. Think about that. You know that inner peace that we get in God's reality? Yeah, fear steals that. So we don't need to be doing that. But the enemy will trick a lot of people into chasing their tail with that fear as well. You know how employers use narcissism to instill fear of unemployment? Yeah. That's common in toxic workplaces. Absolutely. That's how the game of narcissism is played. Because, right, it's financial abuse. Yep, trying to get people afraid of losing a job. Oh, we saw that play out a lot, didn't we? Over the last few years. Because of a scare-demic. Y'all learn more about this stuff on the Patreon channel, for real. Listen, I bring it to you. Stuff from the rabbit hole. And yes, I refer to it as the scam-demic. Some people call it the plan-demic. But it is what it is. And I see people out here still playing the game. No wonder the enemy keeps prolonging it. Because as long as people keep playing the game, the enemy going to keep prolonging it. Why? Pain and suffering. Never forget that. If it's something that can cause pain and suffering, the enemy will always try to prolong it. Yep. Being held ransom by employers. Yes. Through that threat of, oh, I know. It's part of narcissism. It's part of the abuse. It's part of traumatization. It's part of keeping people living in fear. Because the enemy and the fallen world out here has a love of money. And so it's going to automatically, through that demon of assumption, assume that others do too, who don't. God will provide. He always does. He always has. He always will. So there you go. All right. And trust and believe. All right. How are you going to trust God and live in fear at the same time? That's a double mind. Can't do it. It won't work. So I realize that the enemy can't stand it when we don't show any sign of living in fear. Like I say often, that's too bad, because God is always in full control. So I am going to go ahead and wrap it up right there, everybody, for today. Yeah. I had to get on here and talk about this because it's important. It's an important reminder that when you get to God's reality and such, that, yeah, you gotta let go of those learned fears. So there's your homework. All right. Let the autonomic nervous system tell you what it is, because your thoughts control it. So when it responds to something, that means that something that it's remembering from previously, where you made where it made the association to the threat. And we did a in the subconscious. Okay? So That's how we play a role in it. All right, so more on that later. And I want to say, enjoy the rest of your evening. We are going to have more content. Yep. And we will be up, as far as I know, we will be up tomorrow on Saturday Bible study and things like that, God willing, of course. And I will always let y'all know if we're not going to be. Okay, so there you go. I am Michelle Dickey, your host for CHA's Let's Just Chat show, streaming on the YouTube channel Narcissism and Cognitive Dissonance, where trauma healing and spiritual growth are front and center while combating radio frequency poisoning for healthier living. Trauma healing and spiritual growth occur with God's wisdom, basic scientific facts, tried and true technique, and more here and at CHACademyBTBW.com. The link to the Academy is listed below, and some of you may need to copy and paste the link to view what CHACademyBTBW.com offers to help you level up your trauma healing and spiritual growth. Sending love and light to all fellow warriors. Thank you for watching, listening, and for your support. Till next time, let's show some gratitude to the Heavenly Father, and you keep being you. In Jesus' name, amen.